Hi guys, my name is Becc. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about the transition from the idea, this concept of, quote, being a victim to being empowered, and also this idea of spiritual responsibility that comes into that. So I use quote marks when I talk about that sentence because I really don't like the way that that sentence is typically used in spiritual communities, healing communities in general. I think that it is filled with a lot of judgment that doesn't understand what is happening in that dynamic. And speaking as someone who has experienced the energy behind that of feeling very, very powerless and stuck in one situation or life experience and burdened, and being someone that's transmuted that into this very empowering experience of spiritual responsibility and empowerment and what that really means, I know that judgment is incorrect, and it is built on really thinking that people are absolutely 1000% consciously choosing to, quote, be a victim. And it's not like that. So I'm making this for especially anyone that has been told that in your experience. I'm laughing because it happened to me. Or if you are really just wanting to step into your self-empowerment and responsibility, but you felt stuck or afraid or resistant in some way to that. So what's really happening when someone says like, oh, you're being a victim, the judgment is like you are making yourself stay stuck in your circumstance. You are not being an empowered person. You're not taking responsibility. And sometimes, this is happening. Sometimes people are consciously not taking responsibility. But even then, what is the purpose of responding with harshness or judgment rather than an attempt to understanding, to reach understanding and or compassion? That was my question. And what I want to tell you guys from my own experience of transmuting that is how to really move into this freedom that actually comes with spiritual responsibility and the understanding and the compassion that's needed to get there. So what we need to realize is that this feeling of powerlessness is what's driving your experience. I'm speaking to anyone who's feeling stuck or powerless right now, a victim, if you've been judged that way. You're feeling really stuck and powerless, and you're feeling sort of thoughts and emotions of I can't do this, or it's not fair, or I'm completely overwhelmed, or all of the above. And just mainly I can't change this, or I can't do that. And we want to actually begin to recognize that those feelings are the majority of the time feelings from long ago, from when we were small and we were in a very powerless or stuck situation. And at the same time, there's also often some current now validity to it, in that we sometimes, it is really unfair. It is. It's okay that you feel that way. It was unfair that I had to be left with all of these PTSD wounds and scars from what happened to me, and then it's on me to fix it, and I feel so overburdened and so overwhelmed and like a mess of dysfunction, but there was no one else to assist me. And it's unfair that our society is set up like that. The society should be set up to assist people who have been injured or who are unwell in a really deep and empowering way, but it isn't. And then on top of that, there's judgment. So what I had to realize, and use myself as an example to help me explain, is that even though it did suck and it was unfair, and I felt like I could not do this. I could not recover. I could not, create the abundance that I need to do X, Y, Z, or whatever your situation is. It doesn't have to be massive, stuck in trauma. Whatever you're feeling stuck in, or that you can't or you don't have the power to make things different. I had to realize that I could keep believing that, or I could try to do something. And that sounds a little harsher than I'd like, but it wasn't a harsh, painful, attacking thing towards myself. It was an acceptance of the current situation. It was, this is where I am right now. This is the truth, that there is no one else who's going to come and save me or rescue me from the burdens that I have. And I guess my choice is, if you think about this very logically, your choice is to, basically for me it was to like kill myself or stay the same, or to attempt to move forwards. And when I would do that, I would feel like I can't, I'm so overwhelmed, all of that. But I had to move forward in a way that was compassionate to those feelings, and in a way that was, that I started to question the truth of them for the here and now. Is it really true that right now I absolutely 110% have no power to change the situation? And then I started to realize that these feelings were from long ago situations. The memories were when I was very small. And things are different now in that I have grown, I have more safety than I did have, and I am a powerful spiritual being, actually. I had to be honest that I actually am, whether I agree or parts of me feel unfair, like it's unfair, the situation I'm in is unfair. For some reason, some part of my spirit has signed on to this life with exactly this situation. And I guess she wouldn't do that if she thought we were just going to stay stuck and die. So you have to question what you're experiencing within yourself. Is it really true? And also ask yourself, do I want to believe this? Like, do I want to keep believing this? And in asking these questions, you recognize that you have the power to pick a different way of thinking about things, a different belief. I also had to recognize, and this is what I want everybody to recognize, is that when someone is being a victim, there is a grief process that's happening inside. There's a resistance to that acceptance I just explained. There's a resistance to accepting that it's all on them to fix the situation, etc., and that they might have the power, or even if they don't feel like they do, that there is no other option. Because it is incredibly painful for them. It is very, very painful in that moment. And so what do humans do? We resist. We try to fight the situation, and we imagine, and in this example, we imagine and fantasize that someone should rescue us, or that it's unfair. These are all human, understandable fantasies, most of a child's fantasy. And they are separate, and they flow because we are separated from our connection to our higher self, from the truth that I am a higher self being that chose this. It's not unfair. This is what I chose. But the unfair feeling isn't going to go away just because you recognize that, or because you tell someone to stop being a victim. That is a part of themselves that is grieving the way that life isn't. They are grieving the lack of support that they feel, or a separation from life, a non-belonging, and a lack of support. And so you really have to be compassionate to that and allow and recognize that for what it is. Staying stuck is my way of grieving and resisting what has happened to me. That's what you're doing. And it requires that you honor and validate the feelings that you do have of it's unfair. And then you ask yourself, is this the way that I want to keep going? And is this way and these beliefs helping me? And then we can move into recognizing that there must be some spiritual reason for you being here. And owning, taking responsibility for the fact, this is where responsibility comes in a beautiful way, that we have been in an active denial of our great internal power and capacity to heal. Because we're still inflamed with all those old wounds and the grief process of a young child. But when we recognize, and when we start to try, and we begin to notice and take in that things do change, we have to admit to ourselves that we have the power. We have to admit to ourselves the way that we know, as spiritual people, if you're watching this, I'm sure, that the way that life works and that incarnation worked. You being here, there must be an assumption that you can do this and that everything you need is inside of you. So instead of fighting that, what if you chose to think maybe that's true? Imagine that that was true. What would you do differently? Would you listen to your intuition more? Would you attempt, instead of hiding behind a fear of failure or feeling more stuck? That's often part of why we don't want to move, is there's a part of us fearing that we're going to be more stuck and that it would be more painful to even try and then fail. But you want to ask yourself, is this serving me? And what's going to happen to me if I don't change the situation with this recognition of my power? I asked my guides, why do I keep falling apart over and over one day? And they were saying that I wasn't in full recognition of my power. And when I did that, everything changed. This is where I want to flow into talking about spiritual responsibility in terms of self-responsibility, and how when you feel like a victim, or you do not just feel like a victim, but you do have a lot of wounds, or you have a lot of difficulty in life, with life in general, or a situation, it is hard, it is a challenge to say to yourself, I can change this sometimes. And it is hard to want to add the responsibility of changing the situation for yourself when you already are feeling overburdened. And so that's the resistance that's happening there. But what you're not realizing in those moments is that through self-responsibility, we experience the remembrance of our power, and then we get to be free. You will see that you can change the situation. You can move forwards. You have to be willing to change your beliefs. You have to be willing to take responsibility for what beliefs you have been thinking and what they are creating. And you have to recognize that you are the creator of this life. I think a lot of people who are feeling this way in the spiritual community or otherwise are wanting to sort of have it both ways. I want to, manifest things and create, and this is cool, but I want someone else to come in and change this situation for me, or, give me $1 million, or love me the way that I need to be loved, instead of you loving you, or instead of you changing your energy to attract what you need to attract. And the only way that you're going to know that you are a powerful being is to not be rescued. And that is how you will recognize the beauty and the great joy of responsibility. There is such a great joy in recognizing, I did it, I can do this. And then you start to recognize that you can do it a little bit better, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and the evidence builds that the old beliefs were just beliefs. And so when we have that sense of taking spiritual responsibility and we see it for its pure truth, you got to stop seeing responsibility like it's an added burden or that it's painful. Taking responsibility for your life can be beautiful. It is beautiful. If I take responsibility for the pain, I learn that I can transmute the pain. I learn that I can trust myself to get through anything in life. Life becomes much easier and much more beautiful when you face what you don't want to face and you move through it with your own power, You are able to trust in yourself more to carry you through, to rescue you, so to speak, in the way that you wanted. You stop needing rescuing, and the love and the attachments and the connections that you have are far more pure as well, because you are dependent on yourself. You become depending on yourself rather than external people. Not that there's anything wrong with interdependent relationships, but we need to notice when we are falling into a kind of a victim, or also like a parasitic way of being, which again is not something that we need to judge. Okay, we've all done that from time to time when we feel starved inside and we can't figure out yet our own way of creating. It's a very automatic survival process. But when we notice these recognitions, when we become aware and we recognize, that's when we have to take responsibility. And if from that moment that you recognize, but you still keep doing the habit without effort to change, and there's a very conscious decision to just keep taking or whatever you're doing, or keep staying stuck in a very conscious, no effort way, then I suppose you could say someone is being a victim. But even then, where do we draw a line for compassion, and why should we draw a line for compassion? We should draw a line for safety between us and those people, potentially, but I don't think it's right or compassionate to judge someone who is completely enveloped in their narcissistic personality, for example, consciously choosing these things. Our compassion has to go deeper than that. It has to go so deep. If you want to love yourself, if you want to love you in the way that you want to be loved, you got to find all those parts of you, the narcissist in you and all of that, and treat them with compassion, the victim in you, and treat them with compassion. And at the end of the day, through all of them, you always see that it's only about feeling afraid or not enough or unloved, which all ultimately comes from our sense of separation from our source self. That is why the beautiful remedy is to taking responsibility with the support of your spirit. You are not meant to just sort of do it all on your own in your human mental space. Empowerment and responsibility, the ability to do those things well and healthfully, it comes from the merging with your higher self. So your higher self is not going to rescue you, but you take ownership that you are that higher self that chose this life, and that you are that higher part of you as much as you are the part that feels like, I guess, a smaller self. And you have a responsibility to continuously go with that intuitive wisdom that is here for you. And that will build your bridge, and your higher self is kind of like your partner in life. That is how it should be. You are supported. And to deny that reality, that is when you might be choosing to play victim still. To deny that you don't have the support that you need. Yes, you may feel far from it at times. You might need to practice listening and connecting to your higher self, aka your power. But you're choosing to be disconnected from it and focusing on the pain or the stuckness or whatever. And I say choice in a way where sometimes we're choosing consciously, sometimes there's beliefs and layerings that happen where when you get down to healing, you realize that you are choosing XYZ belief, or you are choosing to hold on to XYZ pain. And we're never going to get anywhere if we just treat that with judgment, or like, oh, just being a victim, I'll just stop then. I could not find the I'll just stop button. The remedy is to connect to your heart and to trust that the power is here, and begin to trust, because not trusting has not been working. It's not going very well. It's time to try something new. And yeah, I speak from experience. When you do this, you feel way more free. You feel like, wow, I can create anything. And as I said, you're not going to get that experience. You're not going to know that. And you're always going to be reliant on external, rescuing situations or something like that, or solving the problem. And you won't get to that place in life that you want to be, where you have all the abundance or all the support and all of that. It comes from the higher self. And it is a great joy to be a creator being that can create in this way. That is what Spirit wants us to most importantly know about this message today, is that it is a great joy. And I'm excited because I'm speaking from experience, that when you realize these things, you are a freedom creator for yourself. You can unstuck yourself. And you need to be compassionately allowing of your human self who grieves the way that life hasn't been. That doesn't mean that you can't make life differently now for yourself or the situation that you're in. Yes, it's been painful. Yes, but you can move through. And when you do that, you will know the true joy of being a creator being, playing with the law of attraction, playing with the magic that's here, dancing with the healing growth that's happening in this life. My guides tell me again and again, we came for the journey. You came for the journey. If you were just trying to get to like a destination and you got to figure that out, we would have just stayed at home. When we die, we're just going back home. We're going back to the beginning. So it's got nothing to do with the destination. It's that journey of being a creator being, that all of these experiences help us to deeply live the journey. So I'm just going over these notes I have like in my mind. Self-responsibility is freedom. Self-responsibility is empowerment. And we have, I think also, I will add, a collective responsibility for the love that you have for this world and your part in contributing in this world just through the lifetime that you are. Contribution doesn't always mean an external action, though usually there is one. But some people are here to just heal layers and layers of things. And there's always going to be an outward expression of that. But I don't want anyone to get fixated on an external expression. You're here to be you. You're here to be you in your most empowered and beautiful way. And you're here to learn to weave the higher self into this lifetime, into this body, this consciousness, so you can move through anything. And we have a responsibility to each doing that because we are one. We are one collective being. And when you take your responsibility for yourself, creating the life that you came here to live, you contribute to my life beautifully, and vice versa. The earth needs all of us to step into our purpose now more than ever. I think it's very hard to not do that at this time. I look up because the light that's hitting the planet right now is really asking us to move through fears, old stuckness, and just let go and admit that you're a powerful being, even though you don't feel like it sometimes, that's what you are. And no matter how hard things get, that doesn't change. It doesn't change. And so that means that you always have the ability to move through, to change your life, and to joyfully create this life that you came to do exactly that. You don't need anybody to rescue you. You will move you into beautiful and more brighter situations. You might have needed someone to rescue you when you were small, and it's not okay. It's horrible. It's painful that part of you had to have that experience. But part of this spiritual responsibility and growth is that through an authentic acceptance, we begin to see that even those experiences, we weren't meant to be rescued, otherwise we would have been. And that you couldn't be the powerful, beautiful being that you are here and now without those experiences. And that what you are creating is somehow born from those experiences. And that's part of taking responsibility, of admitting that you're the higher self. Taking responsibility for your higher self means taking responsibility that you chose this life and you chose those negative experiences. And it's not the universe being mean to you or unfair, although that's an understandable child feeling and it's okay. It is that your higher self is you, you are one. We can't have it both ways where we just dance and play with the higher self sometimes when it's fun, and then we get mad at the universe and the higher self when it hasn't been. Your entire consciousness needs you to admit that you are the entirety of your consciousness. That is how you create the most beautiful life, the most beautiful light. So I hope this serves you, and take joyful responsibility for your life. Take joyful empowerment and trust in your power as it starts to trickle in, and it will. I trust you.